Welcome to Celtic State of Mind as part of the ACSOM Quadruple Treble Charity Weekend. My name is Stephen Mullen and I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Kelly, the St Roch's manager, Gordon Hammond, Honorary President, and Tam Fife, St Roch's legend. We're all regular attendees at Roch Talk, one of the beneficiaries of this magnificent event organised by the ACSOM team. Our show has been kindly sponsored by Roddy Owens, Managing Director of Roch. He's sponsoring the show in memory of his father-in-law, ex-Candy player, Charlie Johnson. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Hello, Steve.
Thank you.
We're going to be discussing St Roch's, Celtic and Roch Talk. There'll be a lot of people watching and listening. So Tam, could you please tell people about where James McGrory Park is situated in Glasgow and the communities we serve?
Certainly, Stephen. So, probably the first thing to say is, for certainly the Celtic crowd, that's Jimmy McGrory Park is probably 2.5 miles directly north of Celtic Park and on the Royston Road. And the area Royston Road corridor would cover would be Royston Hill, Germiston, Blackhill and Probinville. That would be the main areas in the corridor.
Would you include the town head in that?
I would include town head, but I mean town head maybe 50, 60 years ago when it's 20,000 people was obviously part of our. Today we're kind of cut off because of the motorway. The motorway cuts us off. Motorway one side it was a canal, and before that the other side is the railway, the main line that used to come out of a Cannon Street station. So that's why it's called the corridor running up, but some people might even call it Forgotten Zone because...
The reason why I'm asking that, Tam, is because obviously St Roch's Parish was formed as an overspill of St Mungo's.
That's right, it's formed as a mission. The actual St Roch's Parish opens in 1907, so it was a mission from St Mungo's, which dates back to the 1850s. A lot of our support, I was looking up some in the internet the other night there and realised that one of my relatives, my great uncles, had actually lived in Middleton Place, which was run by where roughly Gangad Chippy runs up, and it was a straight line up the hill, and that was Middleton Place, and they lived there in 1855. So you can see that I link a lot of the support get right back into time. You know?
So just to give the viewers a wee thing, how would you describe the areas? Would you say they're socially deprived areas, Tommy?
I think it goes back. My father remembers getting into the area in the 1920s, playing for the Boys Guild and saying, you know, he came for the Gorbals, and you know, just it was the Gorbals was like Newton Mearns compared to the Gangad. It was so poor. But in the 1920s, it was that bad that it was the first redevelopment in the city from the council happened in the Gangad, and Gangad Square is the first council houses which is still there to this day. That's 1919, so that's the first moves. It was so bad that the council had no option but to enter the story.
The reason why I'm saying it is because I think they're socially deprived, and we might be poor in wealth, but I think we're rich in spirit, Tommy, and generosity of spirit.
And I'll give an example of that. An incident that happened in Scotland was the Dunblane case. And I remember at the time that the Gangad people had a fundraiser and they raised £3,000. And I thought, the Gangad raised £3,000, one of the poorest areas of Scotland, to give to the richest part. You know, and that kind of summed up to be the Gangad.
Brilliant. So just over that, the viewers just have a wee idea about where we're located. So I'm going to go on to yourself now, Gordon. What's your thoughts on the similarities between St Roch's and Celtic, even down to how both clubs were formed But if I did say to you earlier, you can't comment on your disdain for the person who runs St Roch's and Celtic. Because that's a different conversation.
Well, I was born in 1945 in Germiston, 3 streets away from the Improv Mill Park, and to me, St Roch's and Celtic are one and the same. The similarities are remarkable. In 1888, it was Borough of Walford in St Mary's Parish that started Celtic. Fast forward to 1920, in St Roch's Parish in the Garden Gad, it was Father Lawton who formed St Roch's. There's similarities there. Both of them wear green and white strips, and I'm delighted to say from the beginning both clubs were open to all comers, and both have been touched by tragedy on the park, but players getting injuries and dying as a result of that. John Thompson 1931 versus Rangers, and Pat Fagan in a Scottish Cup tie against Blair Gowrie in 1980 sustained an injury which he later died from.
See Big Pat, Gordon, it would be roughly about 40 years ago just now, wasn't it? Big Pat died on Christmas Eve, eh?
Christmas Eve, aye. I actually went to visit him on Christmas Eve, and I couldn't get in. It was only family that could get in. He deteriorated, and I couldn't get in. And the next day, Tommy Mulvey, the match secretary, came to my house and told me he had passed away. That was an injury during the game against Blair Gowrie, Scottish Cup tie. Wally Harvey, who's now the manager of Rutherglen Glencairn, was in goal for St Roch's, and a big high cross came in, and he went up and got it, but he landed on top of Pat.
Pat was a relative of mine, so he was a great player as well as a nice man. Aye. Sorry for interrupting, so if you can go back to some of the similarities between the clubs, great.
Well, both clubs, in my consider opinions, were both outsiders in the leagues we play in. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. But everybody at St Roch's, we're proud of our heritage and where we came from, and we're proud of who we are.
Well, what about the story that's told by Sir Robert Kelly to Peter Flynn, who's ill just now, Peter, and hope he gets better?
Yes.
About if as long as a Celtic there'll be a St Roch's. Were you testament to that, Gordon, or
no,
is it a hearsay story?
A hearsay story. I believe it's a gas bill, and they were struggling to pay it. I hired a gas electricity bill, and they were struggling to pay it, and Celtic paid it, and Sir Robert Kelly said as long as he was there was always be a St Roch's, and that was a true story. Peter Flynn. Well,
Peter Flynn's a lovely man, and there'd be no need for Peter to put on a story or anything.
Aye.
What about the actual formation? Did that come about for St Roch's as a result of a boys' guild tournament?
Well, they were inter-parish at that time. Inter-parish and all the different boys' guild and all that played, and they formed a junior team. That was in 1920, and then the following season, 1921, that's the only time we won the Junior Cup. We beat Kilwinning Rangers. Jimmy McGrory scored a goal. You were probably at that meeting, Tam. What's your recollections of that? have you anything to add to that, Tam? No.
Well, I should point that Peter Flynn told a story about in 1944, Second World War, and the Junior Cup was on the go, and St Roch's played in Saltcoats. So down to Saltcoats, his father says, we'll go down to Saltcoats. And Peter Flynn was 10 years of age. So he says, that's okay, we watch the game, we come out of the game, and we get back in the train. And it's whatever time it is, I'd say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he's on this train, and they're heading back to Glasgow. And it's 1944. What's happening in 44 is D-Day, and the train is sidelined into sidings, and they arrived back. His mother, it came about midnight, they obviously didn't have a phone in the house, and she went to the police because the son and father had went to see the game, and she went to the police, and the police says, well, did they go anywhere? She says, well, they went to see St Roch's playing Saltcoats. He says, they're probably in a siding somewhere in a field in Ayrshire. That was the story. Well, yourself, Paul, for your dad, Harry, God rest him, he gave you any stories about that earlier times?
I think the thing for my family, Stephen, was always that connection. Like, my dad, Harry, wasn't the best player. He had 4 brothers, and they were all better players, and his brother Peter dabbled with St Roch's, like always trying to get me sign, and he'd come in and play a game and then go away and all of these things, and they never. And my Uncle Billy at one point was in the same situation. It was always because if you lived in the areas that Tam had mentioned earlier, if you were for the Garngad or Blackhill or whatever, your aspiration was to play for the Roch. There's absolutely no question about that. So, that was from a very young age, from probably 6-7 years of age, I was arriving to watch the Roch on the Black Ash with my dad. Invariably, on occasion, my uncle would be playing. Other times, he'd be standing beside us because he'd went away and play for somebody else. It was never really consistent, but it was always that love and connection with the club that's kind of never gone away, Stephen. It's never. It was certainly still for me. At 14 and 15, 16, it was still an aspiration for me to play for the club at that time. When people are saying, you can go and play, there's potential to maybe hook up with a professional club and this and that. For me, it was still nothing matched the magic of the kind of connection with the candy. That was the thing. Well,
that leads us seamlessly on to the next part of it. You're back for your second spell in Charles after 25 years, Paul. You won a league title in 1995 as a very young manager and probably only a few years older than the players. What's the difference between players now and then? Does your experience help now? And finally, does the pressure involved affect your mental health, as we've heard Neil Lennon and Lee Griffiths admit to having such issues?
Yeah. I'll maybe take them in some sort of reverse order, actually, Stephen. The mental health issue is sport's a passionate thing, and certainly football. I'm very passionate about football. I'm still very passionate about St Roch. So yeah, we've had the conversation, and I've told the guys on a Sunday. I don't normally sleep very well on a Friday night. Maybe lucky if I get a couple of hours sleep on a Friday night when I'm mulling over what's going to happen on the Saturday. And even here today, there's part of me still tuned into what was happening later on this afternoon, so I can see where it can affect mental health quite easily. Can affect it can overwhelm you at times. It certainly can, and depending on the status of the game, the status of the club at any particular time. People talk about pressure and relegation. There's also pressure in trying to win things if you're at the top end and all of these things. So there is always pressure. It's a different type of thing from some of the pressures families and other people have had to experience in the last year, but it's still there. And I can very much see where it would affect your mental health and could affect your mental health. I hope that I manage it well. In terms of the situation around the experience, what I'm finding really interesting is obviously my son's at the side of the park with me, along with Ryan McStay. Ryan's had a very good career. But they're both very young in managerial terms. When I first managed St Roch's, I was actually appointed when I was 29, so I was appointed as a kind of player manager. But I broke my leg in the second game of the season or something like that, so I never really took part in the season that we won the championship. So
we've still got league medals, Paul.
That's right, absolutely, Stephen, absolutely. But it's interesting to watch Ryan and Kevin at the side of the park sometimes, because I think, yeah, I used to do that. I don't think we need to do that. So experience is an important thing. Experience is an important thing. I think we'll look at the last game that we played down at Craigmark. We were 1-0 up after 26 minutes and we got a man sent off. And there was this general melee at the side of the park. What are we going to do? And 20 years ago I would have been part of that, but my view was just calm down, guys, just calm down, let's go over the next 5 minutes and then we'll make some decisions about how we change things. Whereas I'd have been doing what Kevin and Ryan are doing, which was trying to be in and say, right, what are we going to change, how are we going to, so I certainly think I've become a calmer person through the experience of management.
What do you think of the question like Mourinho would say that years ago when it went into Chelsea, guys like Lampard and John Terry, although they were young in age, they were men? Well, now he's saying he's coming across guys at 27, 28 who are still children. Absolutely 100%.
Absolutely 100%. there is clearly a difference. There's clearly a difference in attitude and approach to the game from younger players today than there was 25 years ago. As I say, I was still young enough to play. There were guys in the team like John Logan and that, the captain, who were older than me. You know, but that didn't bother me. It's a bit that a point, as you say. If you take on the responsibility, then you take it on 100% and you deal with it. And we had our ups and downs, you know. I brought in an assistant manager, Jerry McCoy, and Jerry had a great career at Hearts and Falkirk and Partick Thistle and all these places. Jerry was 4 or 5 years older than me, but, you know, over the course of that season, Jerry and I had to go toe to toe sometimes, you know. So but you take that on. You take that on. Now players kind of shy away from that. And I'm not saying that the dressing room needs to have that machismo, but it certainly needs to have a maturity that the sometimes is missing. That's not there as much as it was in the past.
Well, what do you think? Say, because even I've played junior football. The two guys have watched it. 25 years ago, was it still as hard as what it was in the 80s? And now, you know, you hear junior players screaming when nobody's touched them. Is that just developed into our game, or is that just something we need to accept?
I think, unfortunately, it's developed into the game, and I think that we're with a generation now who see and hear everything on the pitch and on the telly and through the PlayStation. So for me, we've now got centre halves squealing for fouls and all that and rolling about, and for me that's a signal, and that's a very negative signal about the game. You know, it used to be tricky wingers got a bit of abuse, but they stood up and they took it. And one of the things about being a good winger is you've got to be gutsy. Even today, you know, you've got to have a bit of guts about you, because you know when you go past some people, then they're going to foul you. But as I say, you get even centre halves now getting up for headers and squealing that somebody's elbowed them or somebody's bumped into them. I don't think that's a positive thing for the game at all.
Because one of the games I played in, and Big Yogi talks about it, and he does all these sort of podcasts with everybody else. We were playing against Newton Green Star, and Yogi's a young man, and the cad's playing beside me. And it's Towsy. Big Yogi's a bit of a boy, but he's only young. And Cad says, see you next week. And he's like, I'm going through, I'm going to sort him. 12 minutes later, he's stretched off with a broken leg. The Cad just gave him a dolly.
Aye, absolutely.
But that wouldn't happen now, wouldn't it?
No.
The game's changed that much.
No, I think the other thing is you've got to remember with guys like Cads and Doctor at Bayliston and guys like that, these were guys that was an art for them.
Yeah.
You know, actually really, you know, practically maiming you was an art for them, you know. Interestingly, when Cads was at Pollock, the guy for me at St Roch's was Budgie Craig. You know, Cads came up against Robert, and it was kind of like, my reputation will be enough here. But Robert Craig was, for me, was just an absolute monster on the park, you know, and reputations never meant anything, you know. And you don't see that. You don't see any of that sort of stuff. I think the game, there are times, clearly, in the past, there are times when there's too much machismo and too much macho madness, but I think the game misses something at some times now.
So if we're going through that time, and we've had this 25-year period with Paul, what do you think the changes that have been introduced in St Roch's in the last few years, including our community engagement, and what's your thoughts on it, Gordon? So we'll start with you, Tam.
Well, I think to go from, say, 20 or 30 supporters to 200 or 300, I think younger people have come in. For whatever reason, using social media has obviously helped, and a bit of interaction with the local community regarding whether it be food banks or Christmas Joy Appeal. So I've got a lot of respect. I think really a lot stems with, I've got to say it, Andy Cameron, no disrespect to the present manager, but the use of social media and your good self, of course, and I think it's turned the club massively around.
But do you think the two of them have got to go hand in hand, Tam? Do you think if you just had the football and it was doing well, you wouldn't have the same appeal to the community, or if you're just doing community work and you didn't have the football team?
I think there's a kind of element they kind of bounce off each other, like in a match there, you know. I think St Roch's really always was, maybe when the crowds weren't there, but it was always a community club, you know. And I think really that's just been extended now because there's that use of social media and you're able to reach out, you know.
I think we've been able to mix the communities a wee bit better now, Tam. When I went in you still had this sort of opposition for guys for Blackhill to Garngad, you know, and there was a wee bit of rivalry. Now they're friends, you know, and they're mixing together a lot more freely.
I think if this year tells us anything, you know, everybody's used to come together, you know, there isn't any difference between somebody in one end of Roch or another, you know. And I think that proved it, even this week with the Troy appeal, you know.
Well, what yourself, Gordon, what do you think?
Well, the changes have been remarkable, and all the work done round about the park, and the stuff in the dressing room, but the community stuff's amazing. You know, the homework class was amazing, and the toy appeal, when I was going home for the park yesterday at 3 o'clock, Barmore Primary were coming out, and it's fantastic. Every child was walking out with a present. Absolutely amazing.
Well, there was 93 kids on the roll for Barmore Primary, and we were able to supply every one of them with a gift. For me, the sort of funniest one that we done was when the 3 girls, Erin, Olith and Michaela, were doing the on the ball thing, you know, it's the attack period poverty. So I'd asked to meet them, and they had the best laugh of their life tormenting an old man talking about it. And I'm sitting across absolutely scarlet, and they realised they had a victim on the end of the hook. You know, so they really tortured me. But no, again, a great initiative that these young girls started, and we were the first junior club to get involved with that. But a lot of the stuff, you know, the homework club, young Michael Docherty, when he sort of pitched that to me and Andy, we had no idea what he meant. We eventually get sort of tweets for Carol Vorderman and, you know, commenting Stephen Fry. So some of the things we're doing, it's going to be a bit wider even in our own local community. And the likes of yourself, Paul, involved with Partick Thistle Charitable Trust, I had a conversation with you, and you sort of flippantly says to us, I just watched to see what yous are doing. You know, so it's great that other clubs are noticing, and I think a few clubs are now joining in and doing it in their own communities. So that's a good testament to us. You must see some changes, Paul, from...
I don't think there's any doubt that the future of kind of Tier 7 football upwards will only be secured if clubs can demonstrate that connection with a local community. I think the days of it being solely a football club, I think those days are over. And I go back to the points that the guys made earlier about that. Fundamentally, that was the way St Roch's was set up anyway. It was set up almost with charitable aims, and football was part of the objective, but the charitable aims were every bit as important. And I think that we've rediscovered them again. I think for me, the clubs went through a kind of renaissance probably about 7 or 8 years ago, which started, I think, on the pitch with Andy Cameron, and then you came along very much right at the same time, and have managed to grow the club in a way where the community identity is much stronger and is every bit as impressive as whatever's going on the pitch. You know, if the stuff going on the pitch is impressive, guys, you'll make that decision.
Only when you're not there. Right, so we're going to go on a wee bit, Gordon. We've a great part of Celtic history here, and that Gordon was at all 3 European finals.
Well done.
Yes.
Gordon, I've seen the photograph of you in the heat of Lisbon.
Yes.
With the dress code of the day. Could you tell me a wee bit? You're 23 years of age, when you went to Lisbon?
Lisbon, no, 22.
22. You go to Lisbon. So we've all seen the game. So the bit that I'm curious about is the lead up to the game, obviously with the wrong dress sense, and the immediate aftermath of the game. You know, when everybody's attacking onto the pitch. What was your recollection of them?
Well, see, going to Lisbon, I was totally unprepared. I'd never been abroad. I'd only been to Ireland twice, and maybe to Blackpool for September weekend. Was totally unprepared, no dress-wise. I had a brown polo neck and I had a jacket, and it was absolutely boiling. Totally unprepared for it. Yeah. And on the plane going to Lisbon, Charlie Tully was on our plane, and we went there, but when you go there, shock in my life, as I say, with the heat.
And what was the build up to the game? Because now if you went to one of these games, everybody's in a big square and there's a lot of usually alcohol involved. What was the sort of mood in the city that day? Because it's probably you wouldn't have the same amount of Celtic fans as we
No, there wasn't. We arrived there at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and we got at that time thing with Portugal was under a military dictatorship, and we got a warning, 10 warnings by the travel company what not to do, telling us the police don't patrol streets, the army with guns, and we got these warnings, but we're allowed to walk about, and we're walking about and we're told not to speak to MD. If MD speaks, he don't speak to you.
That must have killed you.
So we went and walked into the harbour, this big beautiful bridge, and we're standing here. This guy approached us, an open neck shirt, and he started talking to us, and we're all looking about and just ready to say something. He turned out as a Catholic priest, so as well we just singed, and then it was a mixture of excitement and fear, because Inter Milan were a top team. You were excited. This was unbelievable, going to a European Cup final after experience from 55 to 60, no, it was to 67, and he went to the game and we won. It was absolutely fantastic at the game. And after the game we get the bus into the centre of Lisbon, and we had a couple of hours to spare before the bus took us to the airport, and I had a Celtic scarf at the time. It was a silk scarf, green with shamrocks on it, and we're 5 of us for the Barmalla Celtic Supporters Club there, and we're walking about here. This able boy started following us about. He wanted my scarf and my badge, and he kept, for 20 minutes he kept beside us, and my pals said, come on, give it. So I gave it to him. And then my last memory is going home in the plane. The plane was absolutely bouncing. It was the energy of the plane could have flown home itself. But here this guy, see, we were on the supporters bus for each game. When we went home, the supporters bus, he ran with a bonnet. This guy goes on the plane with a bonnet. He says, what's that for? He said, the driver. He said, there's a pilot. He probably earns memory of this just put it together. So that was my memories of Lisbon.
Was it brilliant, Gordon? Was it absolutely brilliant to be there?
Absolutely brilliant. My only disappointment is, see with everybody run on the park, I never seen the cup getting presented.
Of course.
It was absolute chaos.
Did many people see that, Gordon?
A lot of people would have missed it, because it was absolutely chaos. We just made our way back to the bus to go back to the city centre. See, that's my only regret about it. The players didn't have a lap on her. That would have been out of this world.
There's actually a side note to this story, because I asked Gordon, when you get back in Glasgow, you said you get back at 5 in the morning.
5 in the morning.
And it was at that night that Celtic come back to the European Cup. And I said, did you go to Celtic Park? And he says, aye. He says, but I went into George Square and met your sister. And she was ready to go.
Don't tell us you don't wait up.
Right, Tam, I've seen the photograph of you, Gordon, your dad, in the Piazza del Duomo in Milan, in front of the great cathedral. But you've got a really good story about the build-up to that game, haven't you? Would you like to share that with us?
So the build-up to the story, we get to Milan. So one of the things my father said, he said, after Lisbon, he says to me, I'm only 7 years of age, right? So you're getting a bit older, 8, 9, and he says to me one day, if we ever get to another European Cup final, I'll take you. The two of us will go together. So of course we get to Milan. So pay up or shut up time. And my father, for some reason, didn't go on the one-day trip. Decided he had a couple of nights, the night before the game, night after in Milan. So that's okay. And he decides, makes inquiries, and we're going to fly to London, and from London to Milan. That's okay. 2 nights, bed and breakfast. Then he thinks, well, I've got the money in the bank, but I'm not going to use that. What I'll do is I'll get a loan. So he goes to his bank, he tells them the story, and they refuse him. And he says, well, I've got the money in the bank. They say, well, we're not giving you a loan. So he decides to use Provident Check, right?
Right, we'll just tell people who don't really know, Provident Check is a loan company.
A loan company.
Who would supply even checks to buy clothing, etc., but they would give you a cash loan as well.
Yeah, and they send agents round the door. Now that's completely stopped. You can do it through the bank now, but at one time these agents, you know, a man or a woman would come to your door on a Friday night and collect the money. And the way it worked was, if you borrowed £100, you paid back 150. It was truly money lending. Yeah. And another thing that Provident Check was one of the biggest backers of the British Conservative Party. One of the biggest. So this was it. We decided to go with, my father decided to go and get a Provident cheque and he get a load of this money. So that's okay, and it works out. You get £100 and you paid it back at £150 a week for 2 years, right? So that's okay, that's that. And sometimes on a Friday night, for whatever reason, Mrs. Sharp wouldn't come to the door, I'd be sent up to her door, going up and pay the Provident cheque woman. Everything goes okay, he gets £100, we go to Milan, and it's about a year later, and my father said to me, take that money up, go up there and pay Mrs. Sharp for Provident cheque money. And she opened the door, and this close in Corrywood Road in Barmulloch, and she says to this 11-year-old, you'll no be going to the European Cup final this year. At which point I kind of thought, it's really nasty to this, to me. I've had it there, And I just forgot about it. I never went back to my father. I never said anything. And it comes it's maybe about 1979, so we're like 8 years later. And I'm standing in Bath Street on the first Saturday in July. Made at a bus stop, and along comes the orange walk, and who's right in the middle? It's Mrs. Sharp. I still laugh at it. Which can kill,
Carrying a Bible.
Carrying the Bible. That still makes me laugh. But I actually waited about 20 years later, and my father lived at a good old age, so it's like the late 90s, And we're talking away one night, and I had to say, do you remember the Provident cheque story? And, I said, well, I told him about Mrs. Sharp and how nasty she'd been the year after. I said, maybe 10 years after, I found out the reason why she was nasty. And my father kind of blew up. Because if I'd have known that, it would never have, all this, And I did laugh at that.
Do you have any boyhood memories about being in Milan, Tam? Do you remember it?
Well, the one memory I remember being in San Siro and
Horns.
The Horns.
Oh, I've still got that in my head. See when Guillermo scored, I said, that'll stop it. Didn't stop it. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was unbelievable. Remember the South Africa? Even worse than that, wasn't it?
Wow.
Non-stop, right for the start to the finish.
Right, so this is where I'm going to bring a wee bit of controversy into this, and we're going to end up arguing here. We're going to have a best Celtics at Roch's 11. Everybody has to be Scottish. 6 Celtic, 5 St Roch's. You're allowed 1 Lisbon line, and you have to have seen them play, or in myself and Paul's case, played alongside them. So I'm going to start. I've kept mine to Glaswegians, all born within the city boundaries, which takes out Bobby Murdoch and guys like that. Everybody in my team has played junior as well. So my team's going to be Starkey, who's a goalie, Danny McGrain, who played for Maryhill, Jerry Collins, who obviously played for St Roch's, Jim Brogan, the most decorated Celtic player with 6 league titles and played in the European Cup final in 70, played for St Roch's, Stevie Rankin, very, very dear friend of mine, who was involved in the team just up to a couple of years ago. Midfield's going to be Kenny Dalglish, who played for Cumbernauld, my great friend Thomas Carberry of Birds Bar fame, he's in the middle, and Tommy Burns on the left of the midfield 3, who played for Maryhill. Up front, my dear friend Shug Farrell, Stevie Chalmers, who scored the most important goal, who was born in the Garmgad for Celtic, he scored the winner in Lisbon, and Frank McAvenny, who played for Johnson Borough. And the manager of my team is James Edward McGrory. So see if he can beat that, and if he's got any comments to make on that team.
With the exception of McGrory, you've just picked your pals.
Well, there is a bit of sentiment to that.
Picked your pals.
Because I spoke to Shug yesterday, and him, Jerry and Cad all actually played for a bit of season together at the Roch.
Uh-huh.
So I've added in Tommy, who was a dear friend to him as well, and obviously you've got the connection with St Roch's, St Mary's and St Alphonsus. They 4 guys were off for the Celt, so I've had to get them. The rest of them was all just my favourites. So what do you think of that team, Gordon? Do you think you could beat that?
Well, you want me to give you my team?
You and Tam's team, you usually get a combined team.
This is a combined team, right? In goal would be Starkey, right back would be world class Danny McGrain, and the twin centre halves is my favourite Rock player, I said this in a recent podcast, John Wallace. He played in the 1957 St Roch's title winning team, and he went to Rochdale. Beside him would be Jerry Collins. It's a 4-3-3, and at left back.
So you're playing Jerry Collins in the left hand side of defence.
Defence, aye.
He's a right back, and you're going to play on the left hand side of defence.
He also played centre back for Hamilton Accies.
Not a lefty, didn't he? That's a favouritism thing.
By the way, we let you have your team.
In the left back is of Jim Brogan, who played with both St Rochs and Celtic. My three in the middle of the park would be Bobby Murdoch. I deliberated between Murdoch and Dalglish, and I went for Murdoch, who was world class. I reckon he was the best player in Lisbon.
Right.
Beside him, Paul McStay.
Whoa. Paul McStay.
Right.
So he's gone in there as well. Right.
Aye,
Okay.
aye. Mm-hmm. And then the other midfield player is the one that will surprise you. He played for St Rochs in 2003. Was a guy called Alec Eady. Mm-hmm. He was an outstanding player. He also played with Hamilton Accies, and I believe he played with Paul as well. Paul, you'll know him, ain't you?
I played against Alec on a number of occasions. Outstanding
player. And there's a front three to pick a Lisbon line one. Obviously,
no, you've already got your Lisbon line. Bobby Murdoch. So Lisbon line.
That's right. Well, I've picked two. I made a mistake.
One each.
Stevie Chalmers for the Garden Guide. And it's amazing, two guys for the Garden Guide. Stevie Chalmers scoring the winning goal in Lisbon, and Jimmy McGrory, the goal scoring record for Britain, came for the Garden Guide. And beside him I'd play Hughie Farrell, and the left winger I'd play Frank Brogan. In the 1960-61 season, in half a season he scored 28 goals to the left wing. And of two subs, there'd be Stevie Rankin and a guy called Joe Ward, who went from the Rock to Clyde to Aston Villa to Hibs, an outstanding player. And the manager, Paul Kelly.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, did you see all them playing, Gordon, on a regular basis?
Yes, I did.
Well, what about guys, and I know this is your team, I'm only asking, what about guys like Tony McBride and that? Were they talents, or were they just not consistent enough, or not there long enough?
He wasn't there long enough. He only played, remember I told you, he only played 2 or 3 games, then disappeared and come back next season again. He played very, very few games. How
close did, I know one of your favourite players, one of your favourite people is Michael Jimison, how close did he come to getting into your team?
Yes, he was a brilliant player, Michael. We both deliberated long and hard, but it's really, really difficult to leave players. Michael Jimison was a fantastic.
Because I went for a wee bit of sentiment in my team, obviously, with the 4 Carlton guys, because you could have had Stan Rankin, you could have had Pat Fagan, God rest him, in the team, who were every bit as good, the goalie wise, Willie Harvey, Big Heafy, Haxman, they're all really good players.
And then going back, Brian Wallace, who went from St Rochs to Clyde, and when they played in the first division, he's a top class goalkeeper. But Starkey to me is unbelievable. This season I reckon we've got 2 really top class goalkeepers.
So if I had to pin you down, Gordon, who would be your favourite player out in a team? It could either be a Celtic player or a Rock player. Who would be your favourite?
Bobby Murdoch.
Good choice. Good choice.
He was unbelievable.
The only reason I didn't put him in my team, Gordon, is because people told me Rutherglen was the borough of Rutherglen was actually
the Royal Borough. That's right.
So I couldn't put him in. Right, Paul, what about yourself?
Right, what's my team based on? It's a fairly modern team in terms of formation, and I'll come back to that if that's okay. There's a wee bit of sentiment in it, but generally these are people that I think, when I saw these guys play, they were very much at the top of their game. So in goal, I've went for Andy Heafy for St Rochs. I mean, I've watched some great goalkeepers at Celtic, Peter Latchford, Big Packy, guys like that, but Heafy makes it for me, and I played in front of him, so I knew how effective he was on the park. I don't think anybody can ever debate the situation with Danny McGrain at right back, because he clearly in his time when he played, he was the best right back in the world. And the predecessor to guys like Cafu and things like that, he was doing it long before then. A surprise I'm missing, I must admit, for the other two, I've put Davy Hay at number 3. Davy Hay might be my favourite all-time Celtic player, although I was very young when I watched him, and he moved to Chelsea, and I kind of cried a bit when he went to Chelsea, you know. But I vividly remember the 74 World Cup and things like that. I loved his passion for the game, and he always played the game on the edge, you know. He was getting booked and he's always in people's faces, but apart from that, his tremendous ability as well, you know.
And he was a quality street kid.
Yeah, and he was a quality street kid. So at number 5 I've opted for Pat Fagan, and I'm going to tell you this story. When I first Tommy Mulvey and John Docherty invited me into St Roch's when I was 15. I was just 3rd year, 4th year at school, and when I arrived there, guys like Hugh Farrell, Chug McLean, these were the sorts of guys around the Rankin brothers, Steve and Stan. Stan was a big moody guy, you know.
Dalton's.
Aye, exactly. But Pat was he was almost fierce in his kind of stature.
Yep.
He was almost fierce in his stature, but an incredibly gentle guy. You know, it was incredible because nobody in the dressing, guys like the two Rankin brothers were very, very fiery characters. Chugs was always a guy for winding people up and things like that, but nobody argued with Pat. You know what I mean? And I just remember that's being struck by the presence of this guy. He was just such a big guy. And the other thing was, he always reminded me of the big wrestler on the Alf Ederson pit. He looked like a big guy. Pat Roch. He looked like Pat Roch. So that's why he gets into my team, because he made such an impact on me as a young person, you know. My midfield 3 is John Cox, who played in the team that won the league, Paul McStay and Robert Craig. And my view there is that Cox and Craig could take care of anything. They could take care of anything on the pitch. They were very, very physical, but technically had enough about them to, you know.
You've missed a centre half, Paul. You've only put one.
I'll come back to him.
All right.
So I've got A3 in there, which leaves me Jimmy Johnson playing wherever he wants to play in the wide areas, wherever he wants to play, alongside Dixie Deans and Brian McClare. That's my 3 at the front. I think McClare, for 3 seasons in a row,
Dixie Deans.
Brian McClare was the top goal scorer at Celtic, and every season they bought another striker. They bought another striker every season he was there.
You know, a great fan. Paul's a great fan of him.
Oh, is he really?
Aye.
I thought he was an outstanding player for Celtic. The only reason Chuck Farrell doesn't get in the team is because of Brian McClare, to be perfectly honest with you. Farrell was one of the most outrageously talented footballers I've ever seen. You know, and I remember when he was East Kilbride and they won the Scottish Cup. I remember he played against a guy that played with me in the under-18 set-up, a guy called John McCabe, who was playing at left back for Bailison, I think it was. They played in the final.
Good side, Bailison.
And I remember him collecting the ball right out in the line, and I jumped up and I says, he's going to push it and drag it, he's going to push, and that's exactly what he done. He put it in, and Big John put his leg in, and Shuey dragged it back, because he used to do this at training all the time. It was an outrageous trick. He just showed you the ball, and people put their legs in, and he just dragged it back and went away for you. And I thought, he's going to do the drag, and he done it. And then he played the ball across, and the boy put the ball in the net, and they won the cup. But at training mostly with Shug, you saw some things that you never saw anywhere else. Nobody else could do them, you know. So I think that that's a really strong team. But they're missing a centre half.
Yep.
And I think the ideal foil for Pat Fagan, absolutely, was a guy, Paul Kelly. I'm not picking a team like that, not put myself in it. I'm just not doing it.
Who's your manager?
Steve would keep me the manager, I don't care. If they tend to come to play at the Roch, I'm playing with them.
I think, to be honest, Gordon, I think Mike feels that you have
Oh, I've got a lot of danger in my team. Like McClare, Dixie Deans. I mean, what about that for a goal scoring record at Celtic? Dixie Deans, incredible.
What was McClare's nickname? Chalky.
Aye.
There was a kind of side issue regarding there about Dixie Deans and came back to Milan. Was 2 years later we played into Milan, and Dixie Deans takes a penalty kick. We know what happens next, and we're in the Gallagate and you're pretty down, you know. And I was obviously looking to another final, and my father turned to me and says, well, no disrespect, son, he says, but I've not played off Milan yet, you know.
And then Mrs. Sharp's not getting any more money.
I didn't mention Mickey Shirt.
You'd have to get that on yourself, Tom.
So as he's on over, we were going to be one of the beneficiaries for Rock Talk from this fantastic weekend that Paul and the ACSOM team have done. So I was watching a wee thing the other day, and it was Tyson Fury, who's a WBC world champion, and the title of his book's Behind the Mask. So one of the first sessions we had, that was a name or a word that kept coming up numerous times during that. So just going to go back to it. For an older generation, Gordon, what was your original thoughts when you heard we were going to try and set up something like this?
Well, I didn't really know what to expect, but I must admit it's been the Rock Talk on a Sunday with 18 guys that go regularly. It's been an eye-opener. I didn't really realise about depression, how it could affect people, and listen to different people's story. As I say, it's been an eye-opener. I've got a newfound respect for people that suffer for that, and the Rock Talk's been absolutely brilliant. God know the people who have felt without naming them.
But I think the support network that's developed out of God, that's one of the most impressive things for me, that they're willing to, at the drop of a hat, to go and help other people. They're not concentrating solely on themselves or maybe what they're going through. And a lot of it's different issues for different people.
See, Scottish people, especially men, are terrible for sort of displaying the emotions that they don't. It's a done thing, isn't it? People my age, you would keep it to yourself, but now it's great that people are coming out and they like to say a Rock Talk on a Sunday, and they can bring it out and they can get that help. Or
you would get the old cliche one, give yourself a shake.
That's what I say. The doctor would say, you give yourself a shake. No, man up, give yourself a shake. It's been absolutely brilliant, Rock Talk.
So you've probably got the most experience professionally, Paul. Maybe some training. So how do you think it's developed for when you first came in to where we are now?
I think I would back up what Gordon said. I've actually got a great deal of respect for the people that come along and are prepared to open up. I think that's really good. I think something that you find if you open up a programme like Rock Talk, it never ceases to amaze you, the people that prepared to speak and also now speak openly about some of the challenges that they're feeling. I think in our group there were one, the group was instigated by one or two people who were clearly having some difficulties managing their mental health, but since we've kind of constituted a group and it's been going regularly, the amount of other guys that have opened up about some of the challenges that they're having has been really heartening, and I think overall just this whole sense of support. For guys like myself, Steve, and yourself, this is our kind of world war that we're in at the moment. This pandemic is our world war. If you speak to parents and grandparents, they can remember the hardships of either being involved, not necessarily soldiers, but either being involved in the war in some respect or the aftermath. And we're having that now, and who's to say that future world wars might be waged the way this one is currently being done, And
a good excuse to get rid of Trident.
Well, absolutely, why not? This might be a whole different alternative, but unfortunately it's created a lot of challenges for lots and lots of people in the last 9 or 10 months. And if we were the interesting thing for me is if we were to obey the politicians over the last, particularly in the 6 months lockdown, if we were to obey the politicians at that time, there was the Garngad, the north of the city of Glasgow, would have lost a really, really valuable support network.
Yep.
And that support network has been brilliant for the guys turning up on a regular basis. I would stress that we're not cavalier about how things are done. We want to observe protocols and things like that, but fundamentally the message during the lockdown was don't meet with other people. Whereas we felt there needed to be space for people to come and talk, or just come and dig a hole.
Yep.
Whatever it happened to be. So I think it's completely and utterly underestimated, the work that it's done so far, and I look forward to the work that it can do in the future. I just think it's a fantastic thing.
You were talking about Trident there. Surely we've got to get rid of Trident now. The obscene money spent on that. And a virus brings literally the whole world to its knees.
Yep.
A virus.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's affected the whole world. And the money they're spending, it's obscene.
Yeah.
What do you think the benefits of the group are, Tom?
Well, I think especially this year under the circumstances, I think it's I honestly think the Roch Talks probably saved people this year. Their mental health actually saved them. Well, you know, you're locked in for 3 months. You were allowed out for an hour a day for a lot of people. And the Roch Talk was there when it did open up. The first place I headed for was Jimmy McGrory Park. And you know, even if it's a cup of tea and a rolling square sausage on a Sunday morning, it's just nice for folk even just to see friendly faces, you know. And nobody cares nobody's cared whether you're rich or poor or you're sad or something. There's somebody there saying, "Hey, you're one of us. Sit down and we've got a cup of tea and we'll."
But do you think a sports club, although we're a football club, do you think a sports club, because you've got that in common, is a good place to start? Because sometimes we go in, Tom, you know, and we'll talk about the game the previous day, you know, and it gives you the wee icebreaker, and then you'll put in the wee question, how are you feeling today?
You're correct. I also need to say here, St Roch's is slightly unique, you know, even as community clubs. I think St Roch's is a wee bit unique regarding that. I mean, it's kind of, you know, it is kind of open, and it's a kind of welcoming place. And when anybody that's come through the door, whether you're a total stranger, you're always going to get a hello. Do you want a cup of tea? And
The can of ginger.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You know, so I think St Roch's is and actually I thought Roch Talk was just a fantastic idea, and the way it's worked out, I just think it's a kind of genius, you know.
But it's a simple thing, isn't it? But you learn all the time, because a few weeks ago really getting agitated about Shug. The Shug's told everybody he's clinically depressed and he wouldn't answer his phone, and I was getting agitated because he wouldn't do it. And then 2 weeks ago he wasn't present, and I asked the group, he's getting on my nerves because he'll not answer the phone, and some of the members of the group were able to explain why he was going to his bed, because that was his safe place. So although I personally don't suffer from bad mental health, I was getting agitated because one of my friends I thought was suffering and I couldn't help him. But I then learned an enormous amount for that. That's one of the great things for me, because so many people who come along on a Sunday don't suffer from bad mental health, but members of their family do. Now they understand it and can take it home to help them a wee bit better. Have you picked up anything like that?
Well, I mean, definitely regarding this year, I mean, there's all sorts of things could make you, you know, have bad mental health. And we see it this year with unemployment coming in. We're seeing it, we're sitting, you know, a week before Christmas. There's poverty. We're looking at the Royston Road corridor. Well, there is real poverty. And I think Roch Talk is obviously there, but certainly for us. Can I say something here? I think there's somebody like the Celtic manager who's stated that he's had problems with mental health problems in the past. Let's say something here. That's a man probably, compared to me, I'm in universal credit at the moment. Here's a man here that's, you know, he's a football manager, one of the, you know, biggest clubs, one of the big clubs. What's he got to worry about? And the truth is, he's admitted that. He says, look, I get depressed, and, you know, and I think that's people opening it up. You know?
But I don't think there's a stereotype, Tom. I think that's sometimes what we get wrong. We have a stereotype of somebody who's going to be depressed.
That's correct.
You could have every outward signs of wealth and success and be badly depressed. You know, and then again the new terminology, you're planning to complete suicide. You know, and when I asked the guy about it, why do you not say commit suicide? He says, because you commit a crime, you commit a sin. You can't leave the people who are left behind.
That's right.
They're survivors of suicide, having that stigma that their son, their daughter, their husband, their wife has done something wrong.
That's right.
So it's all a learning curve for us. I think we're learning quite a bit as we go along. But I say that the great thing is the mask. Everybody's got a mask for different stages of the day.
That's right. That's right.
The good thing as well, you know, recently people have been telling harrowing stories how bad they've been during the week, and it gets really, really serious and heavy. And then 10 minutes later somebody could say something and we're all rolling a bit laughing. You know, the two sides to it, and you help them. You know, the person that's had a really bad week, all of a sudden they come in and they're laughing as well.
I think there's always help there, Gordon.
Yeah.
It's been having a place to go and open up. Sometimes just getting it off your chest it can be a therapy in its own without any great magic wands or potions. But I think it's important just to talk to somebody and get the chance to get help. Is that your findings, Paul, or is it?
I think I'm going to speak for kind of West of Scotland man here because I'm a West of Scotland man. So for the East, the North and the South, if any of them have got similarities, then great. But typically Gordon has said earlier in the West of Scotland, what you were told in the past was just man up and go on with it. What also happened was if you were the guy that was kind of feeling a wee bit depressed or a bit down or a bit off from the group, then the rest of the group mercilessly kind of had a go at you, and people felt that was the way that you dealt with everything. And it's clearly been demonstrated over the years that that's not the way that you deal with everything. But again, going back to Gordon, what we haven't lost in the West of Scotland is we've not lost the ability to use some comedy, some humour to help the situation for whoever it happens to be, whatever one or group of people that it happens to be. I concur completely with what Gordon says, that we can be dealing with some really, really quite harrowing situations in Rock Talk on a Sunday morning, and 20 minutes later everybody's rolling about having a bit of fun and laughing at a certain situation. I think a more important, something that you touched on there, Stephen, as well, more importantly, is how we've managed to help people maintain relationships and mend relationships. That's been a real eye opener for me. The amount of people that have come in and said, look, my relationship at home has changed with my wife, my partner, my kids. I think that's been incredible. I think that's been, and it's certainly not something that we set out to do, but it's been incredible to see the way that people being able to manage being allowed to manage their mental health in a different way has made them consider other aspects of their life, and they went, I need to fix that, or I need to change that, So I think that's been amazing.
We're just going to have to wind up, guys. Thank you so much for coming, but just one wee final thing. We're part of a quadruple treble centenary weekend. What's your predictions for tomorrow?
I think Celtic 1-2.
Gordon?
I think it'll be harder than we think. I really worry about the referee, who the referee is tomorrow. Only need to go back last year to the Rangers game.
What do you think?
I think they'll win 2-1 probably.
Paul?
We're struggle.
I've kind of got 2-0 Celtic in my mind, but I would caution that it's going to be tougher than we think it is. I think
1-0 for me. So all that's left to say is a great thanks to Paul, Kelly and John for inviting us through and making us one of the beneficiaries. So thanks to everybody. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.